to another episode of Bravo Charlie's. Today, we are going to make a really nice hearty cream soup called potato and leek soup. This is a leek. It's basically a large green onion, but it's grown in sand. And you really have to clean it well before you cook it, because you can get little sand particles and stuff like that down in the different leaves. We're going to chop this up, but I'll show you how to clean this, and it's not that hard, but it's very tasty in a potato soup. So today we're going to need 5 cups of chicken stock or chicken broth. We're going to need 2 leeks, 2 tablespoons of butter, chives we're going to chop up for garnish and flavor after the soup is made, a nice bunch of thyme. I have maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 sprigs of thyme here. That'll be for flavor. 3/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper, 1.5 teaspoon of salt. Once again, this is kosher salt. I just mixed it all together because we're going to add it at the same time. About 20-25 black peppercorns, not ground up, just a whole black peppercorn. 2 bay leaves, 2 strips of bacon, a 1/2 cup of white wine. And the one thing when you cook with wine, never cook with, if your recipe calls for a red wine, if it calls for a white wine, don't cook with the cheapest thing you can find in the liquor store. Cook with a wine that you would drink for dinner. It will make your recipe taste better. If you cook with a cheap wine, you cook with a cheap ingredient, just like cooking with generic ingredients, generic foods, it never tastes as good as the real thing. So get a good wine. This is Sauvignon Blanc that I'm using today. 1/2 cup of that. 3/4 cup of heavy cream. Whipping cream or regular heavy cream, same thing. 3/4 cup. And I already took the time to peel and dice the potatoes, 1¼ pound of potatoes. Okay, the first thing we're going to do, and I have the camera in close so you could see this, is we're going to make an herb package. This is going to go in the soup, and we're going to tie it up, and it's basically going to let all the flavors seep into the soup, and then we're going to pull it out at the end. But all we need to do is take a couple leaves from the leek. Just going to rinse them off real quick. And this is just some prep work that we can get done before we get started on the main work. So just set them up like this. You're going to pour the peppercorns in, add the thyme, and I'm just going to put it in like that. And then we're going to add the bay leaves. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this and wrap it all up just like that. Now the water will be able to get inside of this. The flavor of all of this will come out in the soup, and then you just take a little string then just tie this up nice and tight. Maybe. Here we go. Okay, and then you have this all packaged in there, and we'll pull this out at the end. Now, let's talk about the leek. Like I said here, when you peel this down, you see there will be dirt, and if you feel it, it actually feels like a fine-grained sand that's in there. So this is all going to get chopped up and put in the soup, so it's okay just to break this apart. And we're only going to use about this much of it. We're not going to put the whole leaf in. We just want to use the part until it starts to turn darker green. We're going to throw everything else away. So this will be what we use. So you can break this up you want to rinse this all real good, and then we're just going to chop this up. So clean this off, chop it up, and I will be back to show you what we do next. Okay, I have the leek. It's just a rough chop. You don't have to go crazy with this, trying to get it exact, because this is going to cook down until it wilts. And then we're going to use a immersion blender, or the boat motor, in the end to basically purify all this and make it a nice creamy soup with no chunks in it. But we need to take the bacon, and this is not going to be cooked in strips. We just need to chop this up into pieces, and then in our soup pot we're going to get the butter going. Then once we have the butter nice and hot, we're going to add the bacon, cook that down, and then we're going to add the leek and the wine and continue the process. Okay, so we have the butter in here. The heat is turned down to a lower setting, just a little bit over medium. If you go too hot, like a medium high like we did when we had oil, you'll burn the butter. Oil has a higher temperature point at which it'll burn. Butter is much lower. If you burn the butter, you're going to ruin the recipe and have to start over. So just a little bit over medium and you're fine. Let's add the bacon, and we're going to cook the bacon and the butter by itself until it starts to just get a little crisp. We don't want to cook it till it burns. We don't want to cook it till it's done. We just want to get it rendered a little bit so the fat starts to release into the butter, and then we're going to add some other ingredients. This will take about 5 minutes. Okay, we're back. You can see the bacon, the butter has all cooked down a bit, and all we're going to do now is add all of the leeks. And we're going to let this go for another 5 minutes until this all wilts down real nicely. Okay, as you can see, the leeks have wilted to the point they're nice and soft. I went ahead and added the half a cup of white wine and let it come to a boil. And at this point, we're going to add our little herb package that is nicely wrapped there. And when you're stirring the soup later, as it's in the pot, you're going to want to avoid hitting that hard. You don't want to break it open, but you do want to add that in there. We're going to add, let's add the potatoes first. There was 1 1/4 pounds of potatoes. It's roughly about 4 medium-sized potatoes. And then we're going to add 1 cup of broth, and then 4 more cups. In one of these containers is a quart, so you got 4 cups in there. So we're going to add the remaining amount. And then the salt and pepper. That goes in now. And we are going to let this cook. We're going to return this to a boil, and then we're going to simmer it and let all the vegetables, the potatoes, the leeks, and all that break down even further. Okay, I just wanted to come back real quick and show you our soup has returned to a boil. I did turn up the heat all the way to high to get it to a boil. We're going to turn this back down to maybe medium-low, a little bit less than that, just so it simmers. We want it to now simmer. The potatoes will start to fall apart. The herb package will soak in to the liquid and add all of that flavoring. And in 30 minutes, once it's done simmering, we're going to use the boat motor in here, blend it all up nice and smooth, add the heavy cream, and then we'll have our soup completed. Okay, we're back after about 30 minutes. You can see this has been simmering for a while, and you'll know it's done when your potatoes do this. When you put a fork in them and they just fall in half, they're thoroughly cooked, and this is ready to go to the next stage. So we have to take out our herb package. See, it stayed neatly wrapped up. Take that out. We're going to turn the heat off, and we're going to use the good old boat motor, this right here, to go ahead and blend all of this up. Once we're done with that, we'll add the cream and we'll be ready. A quick note: if you don't have something like this, you can use a blender, however, or a food processor, but do it in batches, and you have to let the soup cool a little bit. If you close the lid and then hit the blender or hit the food processor, it could build up pressure because of the steam, so you want to let it cool just a little bit. But having one of these boat motors is an ideal way to do something like this. You do it right in the pot. It's very safe. I like to go one circle and then back the other way so you catch things as they're floating around. We're going to add 3/4 cup of heavy cream and then give it one more blend. Give it a quick mix so it gets a nice consistency to it. Might want to go a little bit more so it gets a little bit thicker. I'm going to use a higher speed. And we are ready to go. Okay, here we are. We're back with our bowl of soup. The chives, while the soup was simmering, I just chopped them up into fine little chunks, like you'd get in a can if you buy dry chives. But in this case, you want to use fresh. Sprinkle those on top. These have another amount of, or these have a little bit of onion flavor to them, so it accents what you already put in it. I always like a little bit of black pepper on my potato soup, and you are ready to serve a very delicious soup to go with any type of beef dinner. This would go great with a steak dinner, something like that. If you like this episode, hit the thumbs up link below. If you want to see future episodes, please hit the subscribe button below, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.